Okay, hey class, welcome to week 6. All right, so this week we're going to get into, probably the most important topic these days about in relation to advertising, which is branding. Your brand means a lot. All right, you have personal brands or brands for an individual. Take for instance Steve Jobs. He was the founder of Apple, and Steve Jobs built his own brand, right? As a genius and a bit of an eccentric and a weird guy. Reality is he's a jerk, and he was really mean to most of his employees, and he was a really difficult person to work with. But he was branded as a genius, and so when you're branded as a genius, people almost expect you to treat them poorly. And so even his interactions, personal interactions with people, if they were rude and contentious, people saw it as positive because his personal brand was that of like a genius. If you go and you get an audience with Elon Musk or Jack Ma or somebody who's considered to be a big personality genius, you might not actually like them, and you may think that they're a certain way, but when you meet them personally, you're like, oh wow, that person's very rude, or that person seems very crazy, or whatever else it is. But they branded themselves to the public uh, to either excuse certain behaviors or to accentuate them, right? But we all kind of work on that. And so I've actually given you a resource this week that doesn't pertain to your homework, but that actually pertains to you personally. For those of you trying to get into grad school and for those of you trying to get employment with good jobs, I've given you a Forbes article that talks about personal brand and how you can kind of position yourself in real life, for going forward. Now, you don't have a homework assignment attached to this, but it is a good resource for those of you who are thinking about going to grad school and you're starting to build your LinkedIn profiles and your more professional online brand essentially for yourself as a professional. And if you haven't begun to do that yet, now is a good time to start to think about it. And I've given you a resource to get started thinking about that. But so that's the concept of a personal brand. But what we're going to be talking about is a branding sheet, which is your homework. And so we're going to be talking about the brand in the more traditional sense of branding, as in a company or a corporation or an organization and their brand. So I've given you a branding sheet that you can use as a template if you would like, that shows you essentially the elements of a brand. And I've given you some additional resources that explain the different elements of a brand and how you want to position a brand. So what I want to talk to you about for your homework then is replicating a brand sheet that expresses the company or organization that you're representing this semester, right? But you want to create a brand sheet for them that's either specific to their general brand or, and this is probably, a little bit more advantageous on your part, but will really pay off for future assignments. You can start to think about a campaign that or a trend that you want to tie the brand to, that you can start to create your own branding materials with. Now, one isn't necessarily worth more points than the other, but I can tell you that if you start to look up for the advertising stuff now and a trend that you can tie an advertising campaign to and brand a campaign based on a trend, then you won't probably have to redo it towards the end of the semester when you put your final campaign all together. So while you can use already established brand elements and create a brand sheet based on that with all of the different brand elements expressed in there, texture, text, color palette, different fonts, those types of things, right? And again, I've given you an example of what that looks like. But what I want you to be able to demonstrate to me in your brand sheet is that you really do understand the brand in which you're supposed to be representing, either as an agent of an agency who's working with a brand or as an employee directly of of that particular brand. But consistency in everything that we do. So from now on going forward, everything that you create in this class is going to be based off of this branding sheet. So really do start to think about your future assignments. And if you need some additional clarification on any of them, for this assignment, I'm happy to, give you that information either during office hours or email or however you want to go about it. But I want you to start to think creatively about how do we know what are the different elements that you can read and discover for yourself. But then I want you to really tear into the brand and really start to look into it and break those down for yourself to create your branding sheet. And then this will be the sheet that you work off of for the rest of the semester to create any of the materials that you're going to do. Now, the brand should have, you know, already obviously Coca-Cola has colors and looks and feels and stuff like that. If it's a lesser known brand, make sure that you're really doing your homework and that, you know, this is their current up to date materials and information, because that's the type of stuff I'll be checking for. If you're creating a brand, you know, like let's say you're doing a Coca-Cola campaign for a new type of Coca-Cola bottle that's more environmentally sustainable or something like that because of a trend that you found in the industry, then you're going to control, you know, you'll have Coca-Cola elements, but then please do introduce your new elements, right? And this is something that you're, like I said, you're going to have to do later on in the semester. So you might as well do it now and start to practice for this particular assignment, but you don't have to. If instead you want to learn more about branding and then just kind of go off of an already established brand, that's okay. To do now, but then you're going to have to redo it when it comes time towards the end of the semester. So it's up to you if you want to push that amount of research down the road when maybe you have more time if you're too busy over these next couple weeks. But 2 weeks to complete the assignment should be plenty of time for you to introduce some new brand elements that correspond to a trend, right? So for instance, if you're talking about, you know, sustainability, maybe there's some green color elements into it, but your brand sheet is going to have all of the different elements of the brand, and it'll be accompanied by a report that explains what the different elements are. I don't want you to build these two things together. I want them to be two separate documents. I want one to be the brand sheet that just has, that looks like the sheet that I gave you, and then I want you to give me a report that explains the different elements of the brand sheet. If you want, on the branding sheet, you can list the elements as number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as they're displayed, and then you can create in your report 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just explain them like that. That's how I would do it. That's how I suggest it, but that's not the only way to do it. So if you have a different idea that where you can quickly and effectively explain the information to me in a report, that's great. Then go ahead and do it that way. But for those of you, if you don't know what to do, what I would suggest is, like I said, numbering the different elements on the branding sheet and then have the corresponding numbers in a report and just explain why you chose them. And even if they are established brand elements, do explain to me, you know, the history of them, why they chose them, why does Coca-Cola use this font, when did it first come around, how long have they been using it, right? You want to kind of give me an explanation of it. If it's something new, explain why you've chosen this symbol or this texture or this color that you're now using to incorporate with a classic brand, because you're tying it to a trend or something that's happening in the industry that your brand, your company will want to tie themselves to moving forward. All right. So that's kind of a broad overview. We'll get some more information tomorrow during the class session as well, and I can answer some questions for you about branding and elements of that nature. But do take a look at the materials today so that you've seen them for class tomorrow. That would be great. You don't need to take a look at the Forbes self-branding article. You can leave that for yourself as an additional resource. That doesn't necessarily pertain to class or for your class assignment this week and over these next 2 weeks. And then next week we'll workshop this together a little bit and we can do some stuff. But I'm not going to help you workshop unless you've actually brought some materials with you. So make sure that you get started and you're really starting to think about this. Create your branding sheets in Adobe Photoshop, and then you're going to turn them into me as 8.5 by 11 at 150 DPI. All right, so that'll be the format. You'll flatten those images, but yeah, you'll turn them in at 8.5 by 11 inches at 150 DPI. All right, if you have questions, comments, or concerns about any part of the assignment, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow and we'll go over in a little bit more detail how to find some branding elements and talk about those things. All right, okay, have a great day. Have a great week, everyone.